things, but we've been trying to get you involved. And what we kind of want to focus on today is to start focusing on the policies and not the personalities. You know, we've got one of the clearest choices, I think, between light and dark, godliness and ungodliness that we've ever had in a presidential election. And even when I say that, some Christians are going to say, well, Trump's not godly. How would you respond to this?
Well, I would first point out Hebrews 11, our faith hall of fame, which I looked at Hebrews, the faith of God before us. Without faith, we can't please God, right? It tells us what faith looks like. But if you look at our Hebrews, the faith list, it is one of the most staggering lists of flaws and failures and flesh.
Yeah,
it goes in chronological order, right? But if you start with Noah as a prime example, Noah, unbelievable faith. That there's never been rain, and God says build this really big boat, and don't build it near water, right? Build it over on dry ground, and I'm going to send rain, and Noah does, and it's amazing. But in Genesis 9, after the ark lands on Mount Ararat, Noah gets off. It says that he became a farmer. He plants a vineyard. He got drunk and passed out naked, where his sons were like, Dad, what are you doing? Like, covering him up. Okay, if you're a nudist alcoholic, you're probably not qualified to be on church staff.
And that's one of the minor things in that list.
Yeah,
right?
That's right, yeah.
But I mean, if you keep going, you with Abraham, amazing faith that God says, hey, just pack your bags and move, and it hasn't even given you a final destination. Abraham's amazing. He's also one of the biggest cowards and liars in the Bible. Because every time he gets before some other king and he tells his wife, hey, just pretend to be my sister, and tells the king, hey, it's just my sister. Would you like her? Because she's really pretty. Like, what are you, like, as a husband, your number one job is to protect your wife and family, and you're offering her for your, like, you are a coward and you're a liar. Right, when you go through the list, Moses is a murderer, Rahab is a prostitute, David is a murdering adulterer, he's a terrible father, Samson is this womanizer. These are our heroes of the faith. And what you quickly realize is that our heroes of the faith are about as far from perfect as you could be, but what you recognize is that the reason they're heroes is they're not defined by their sinful moment. They're defined by how God used them and did amazing things through them. And as we look at our elected officials, right, if we were looking, we would not have chosen any of the Old Testament heroes that God chose and used, which also is worth noting. We've talked earlier in the week about having a biblical worldview. As Christians, our starting place should be that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, that there is none righteous, no, not one. So we are all jacked up sinners who need Jesus. But if that's my starting place, and we recognize sin doesn't disqualify you from being used by God, well, then I need to move beyond this notion of the fact that, hey, I have these two imperfect candidates. Well, yeah, that's my starting place. My starting place is no matter who you choose, they're going to be an imperfect candidate. Right? You can choose the most godly pastor leader you think. That's still an imperfect person who is a sinner saved by grace. But at this point, the Bible tells us that righteousness exalts a nation. Righteousness is far more determined in a nation by the policies of the nation than by the personality of the leader of that nation. And when you look at the nation of Israel, there were times in the nation of Israel where God blessed the nation of Israel based on the position that leader took, which also is worth noting, like King David. There were moments Israel's incredibly blessed under King David, but also remember King David in a moment had pride. And he said, I'm this really amazing warrior. God's given me so many victories. My army is the best ever. Let's count and see how big my army is. And his leader says, King, your victory doesn't come from your power. It comes from God. And he said, don't slow me down with that. Just go count and see. Even under a godly king, there were times that the people suffered from ungodly decisions. It was the policy, not the personality, that caused the blessing or the suffering.
Let's look at the policy of Trump versus the policy of Harris.
Well, I'm gonna make it bigger than Trump. I'm gonna say look at the policy biblically and then see which of the candidates fits that. There's three passages I would take us to for that. Then first is Genesis 1 through Genesis 12. Genesis 1 through Genesis 12, 6 issues pop up there. And Genesis is called the seed plot of the Bible. We're told that every single important doctrine, belief comes out of Genesis at some point. No, that's correct. So when you start, the first 3 words, in the beginning, what? In the beginning, God. So that's your starting place. God is the first thing you start with. So if you have a secular viewpoint that excludes God, and right now, if you believe in God, you're a Christian nationalist. So if you're opposed to that's the first disqualifying thing. If God is not the starting place, you cannot have a limited government. If man is the starting place, they will take over everything. God is the one who draws the boundaries and says, you do it here, don't get into this, do this. The only way you have a limited government, you start with God. So in the beginning, God created. Well, what he created, heavens and earth. So then the next thing is God creates man. That's life. So now we have the issue of life. God is the source of life. He creates life. You don't take life. You don't take innocent life. You can take guilty life. That's capital punishment. But God creates innocent life. And so that's the life issue. So abortion goes right up there. And it's not just abortion, but in this generation, that's abortion. That's the innocent life, shedding innocent blood. So then he creates Eve. Oh, now we got genders. So we got two genders. So that's the next thing you look at. If somebody says no, as right now, if you go to Helpful Professors, a website in America, 81 different genders listed. You're nuts. You're crazy. I'm not voting for any of your candidates because there's only two genders. So you start with God, you go to life, then you go to gender, and then they have children. Now we're talking family. So we're talking traditional family here.
Well, you could also add marriage into that.
And marriage goes with that. That's right.
The marriage was before the family.
That's
I mean,
right.
relatively speaking, it's a covenant they made with God, right? So it's different than a piece of paper we'd sign today. I'm just
But
clarifying
it's a lifetime covenant.
in case there's anybody confused about how that process goes. We want to get married and then have the kids.
That's right.
Just
So that would be
modern culture.
Jesus said God made them male and female.
That's right.
it.
Matthew
Genders.
19.
So genders, and then marriage is for, and then they have children and family. This is where parental rights also come in. Who runs the kids? Is it the school? Is it the state? Is it whoever it is? And right now, this is a big issue with secular educators. They don't want parents involved. They want those parents out of there.
Totally.
So parental rights comes in with the family, with the parents. And then you go to Genesis 12, and you got Abraham, and Abraham, God's going to bless and says, okay, Abraham will make a nation out of you. Whoever blesses you, I'll bless. Whoever curses you, I'll curse. Israel becomes the sixth issue. So you throw Israel in there. Where is a candidate? Where is a party? Where is anybody on Israel? So that's six things. So right off the bat, and I'll tell you, the Republican platform this year, good platform, and they've reduced it. It had been 65 or 66 pages. They cut it down to 17 so more people would read it.
Let me just interject that you were a part of that platform thing, and even though you didn't agree with everything, you know what you're talking about. You've written a party platform for the Republicans.
For the last 20 years, I've been one of the authors of the Republican platform. And so with that platform, what you'll find is there's 20 action items up front, and there's 57 agenda items. This is 57 things that Trump wants to get done. So if you read the Republican platform, you can find that. So you're looking how many of these issues will show up there.
Can we throw another issue, which is free enterprise?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, free enterprise, Genesis 1:28, take dominion over the earth and replenish it.
Yeah.
Each person is commissioned with a God-given freedom and right to use their life as they see fit for the glory of God.
Yeah.
And then we see the government instituted in Genesis 9 with Noah. It's a restriction of evil, and that's its main function, or preservation of liberty. And so then again, we have biblical worldview.
And that's
coming into play.
anti-socialistic, which is free enterprise.
Anti-socialism, that's
Free
right.
enterprise is the antidote to socialism, and so that would be that would make it then 7 things that would come out of Genesis 1 through 12.